Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm Sam Lance here with Jackson Bezdek. And Bez, we've got two games to go over since we've last been on, and the Jayhawks unfortunately lost both of them. Texas Tech came into Allen Fieldhouse, beat the Jayhawks, and then Kansas lost to Houston on the road on Monday. But were there some positive signs from the two L's? We'll discuss that and give an overall vibe check on how we're kind of feeling about Kansas now that it's March, coming right up next. All right, Bez, here we go. Kansas, after winning two games in a row versus Oklahoma State and Colorado, and what was perceived to be the new season that we talked about last episode, the new season's not looking so great now, with Kansas losing to Texas Tech at home, and then Houston on the road in back-to-back games. Really, there's not too much shame in losing to two top 10 teams, but it really seemed like just for Kansas to get some confidence, needed one of these games, just didn't happen. I'll kind of recap these really quickly. Firstly, Kansas drops to Texas Tech 78-73. Texas Tech shot a program record 43 three-pointers, ended up making 15 of them to outscore Kansas by 33 from beyond the arc. It's just kind of hard to win games like that. And that game was particularly frustrating because of the ending. You know, DeJuan Harris throws it over Hunter Dickinson's head. Zeke Mayo throws up a pretty whack shot after Texas Tech turned it over twice, pretty much. Bill Self was pretty angry about one of them, but chance to tie the game. Zeke Mayo throws up a wild shot. Game over. And all in all, that one, if you're a Kansas fan, was a pretty gross watch. And then Kansas followed it up 48 hours later at Houston. It's a -9.5 underdog, the highest spread against Kansas under Bill Self. And actually, the Jayhawks ended up covering. Miraculously, it was 65-59. The Jayhawks lost by 6 points. And honestly, I thought that was just an odd game. Neither team really played very well offensively, but both teams were just playing like so damn hard out there, at least I thought. But then ultimately, you turn the ball over 20 times against Houston, give up 17 offensive rebounds, both season highs. I think the 20 turnovers was a Big 12 season high, but it's just too much to overcome against Houston. And honestly, I'm surprised that Kansas was within 6 points by losing those two stat categories by that far. But Bez brings us to this. Kansas is now 19-11, tied with last year's Kansas team and 2013-14 Kentucky for the second most losses by preseason number one since the 1961-62 season. Whenever North Carolina missed the tournament a couple years back, they had 13 losses. That was the worst, for a preseason number one. And KU's 9 conference losses are their most since 1982-1983. That was a mouthful, Bez, and I'll kind of shut up after that. What is just circulating in your mind?
Disappointment. You just laid out that last stat. Kansas is going to tie that because I don't think they're going to win the Big 12 tournament, and I do not think they're going to win the NCAA tournament. So even if you win Saturday, it still gets you to 13. That's disappointing. 3 conference home losses, super disappointing. Never happened, ever, I don't think, under Bill Self. So that's really too bad. It's just, it kind of seems like the end here, Sam. You know, you turn the page to March and there's usually something that you can put your hands on, and maybe we'll get into that. But personally, I don't see it. Diggy was cool last night. You know, that was at least, it was kind of fun watching him, and that was kind of the first time I had fun watching this team in a long time. But I mean, they played hard. It's just, this team doesn't work. It's just, we don't have to see it any more times. We've seen it enough. It's now March.
I,
There's no more time to figure anything out. I don't think it's happening.
I do think if you can take away a positive from the past two games, I do think that Kansas's struggles haven't been at all due to a lack of effort. And it did seem like there's some of that, especially out in Utah. Some of the games from earlier this season, it seemed like Kansas wasn't really trying. That wasn't the case against Texas Tech. That wasn't the case against Houston. I thought Kansas played their butts off in both games, but uh, those two teams are top 10 teams. Kansas is not a top 10 team, not even close at this moment. I'll be honest, Bez, my vibes are at an all-time low as
Yeah,
a Kansas watcher. I mean, I guess, I can call myself a Kansas fan. I do indeed root for the Jayhawks, even though I am an unbiased journalist
of
over
course,
here.
of course.
But it just feels like this team is incapable of winning against a good team. Sam McDowell at the Kansas City Star, he pointed out that since November 26th, KU is 1-8 against KenPom top 49 teams, that lone win being Iowa State. It's also worth noting, I kind of, just looked at Kansas's overall schedule, how they fared today. Duke, Michigan State, Iowa State are the three teams that will be in the NCAA tournament that Kansas has beaten. Three, three teams, Bez. If North Carolina somehow gets in, that'll be four. But overall, against teams that are going to be in the NCAA tournament, KU is 4-9 against those teams. And on the net rankings, Kansas is 5-9 against quad one opponents. It's not very good.
No, no, this is not good. It's not happening this year. Even like last year, I think we kind of liked our draw a slight bit. We didn't love the McNeese 13 seed hanging over there, but I think we thought we matched up well with Gonzaga and had a chance there. And that game was tied at halftime, and then the wheels came off. But like last year, we thought was the bottom of the bottom, and we still were able to be like, okay, a second weekend isn't out of the question here. This year has been worse. It's felt worse every step of the way since conference play started. It's felt worse, and I don't even have anything to put my finger on. I don't see a draw that I like for Kansas because of what you just said. The only half decent team you've beaten in the past months is Iowa State. And that's a wounded Iowa State team, by the way, on a Monday, coming off a tough loss for them on that Saturday. That was more of a vibes thing than anything for me. And I think you and I both agree Kansas didn't really play super well that game. Iowa State just kind of shot themselves out of it, and they were on a real low. That was the lowest point of their season. Kansas got lucky getting them when they did at Allen Fieldhouse. So I just don't like basically what I'm saying is every team that's seated above Kansas, I think is legitimately better than Kansas. Every single one. Every single one.
And at this point, Kansas is looking at a 7-10 to play a 2 seed in the next round or an 8-9 to play a 1 seed in the next round. If that is if Kansas gets a win in the first round. So it's not looking good. It's not looking like a Sweet 16, which is, I think, what we said a couple weeks ago was like, okay, like, yeah, we'll take a Sweet 16. That is
Right.
starting to look really bleak, a Sweet 16 appearance for Kansas. And it is honestly pretty sad. We'll talk about it later, but sending out some of these seniors on this note, it's pretty sad. It really is.
Yeah, and like even if you do win that first game, there's no fraud teams at the top. Like this tournament's going to be pretty awesome, which is why this bums me out even more. That Kansas just isn't going to even be a factor in what's going to be a really freaking awesome tournament because there's 15 to 20 teams that are legit. And that's all those 1-2s. Like every year there's maybe one where it's like, oh, like Houston pre Big 12. It's like, okay, they're 33-3, but what does that even mean? That's not a thing this year. It's packed with SEC, Big Ten, and Duke. That's what it is. And that's what you're going to have to deal with at the 7 through 10 seed. Kansas is going to be overseeded regardless of what they get because for some reason their metrics are still really good. The BPI has them at 11 right now.
21 in Ken Palm still.
How does the BPI have Kansas at 11?
20th in the net still.
What is like that? So they're going to be overseeded just because the resume metrics look pretty good still. But that's not going to fool anybody. I think the entire country is onto this. There's not going to be a sleeper Kansas to the Sweet 16, except for your boy Evan Maya, who still thinks Kansas is going to the Elite Eight.
That is true. All right, let's go over some takeaways from the past couple of games here before we, start going down just full meltdown avenue. Uh, Diggy Coit, we got to talk about Diggy. What did he have last night? Was it 18, 19? Sorry,
Like
14.
45.
14 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 4 of 6 from three. Diggy also had the second most rebounds Let me say that again. Diggy Coit, the 5'8" guy, had the second most rebounds on the team with four, tied with KJ Adams, who also had four in second. And then he had four assists, which led Kansas. And a lot of those assists were like no look, just
Yeah,
absolute,
they were nice assists.
like really, really cool plays. So I guess the question is here, Bez, is is this something that we can look forward to and be like, okay, maybe with this play of Diggy, things could look better, get better? Well, what do we think?
I think it's for next year. He gets his year of eligibility. Him being back on the team next year is a very, very real possibility. So as I'm watching last night, I'm thinking of him coming off the bench playing with Darren Peterson in the backcourt with him. That's going to be incredibly electric. Those are two shot makers. I hope, like I talked about this last episode, I hope Diggy's in the exact same role next year. And at least for this year, I think at the start of the season, it was Zeke that was getting people to turn the TV on. And now it's going to be Diggy. Zeke's, that's a whole other separate episode. But Diggy's now, I think, that guy that's going to come in, no conscious, just chucking. And, I mean, obviously there's the Hunter, KJ, Dewan thing that people watch for. But yeah, it's just at least something to look forward to when you turn on a Kansas game that you're not going to be miserable for 2 straight hours. It's like, oh, Diggy's going to come in and he's going to make a couple plays. And yeah, no look passes. He had some bad passes too, but. At least it looks cool. I mean, just something, dude. Something to keep me on the game.
I Self kind of alluded to it. I think it was a couple weeks ago, maybe even last week, that Diggy's kind of the vocal leader of this team now, and I think that kind of showed last night. He was talking a lot with guys, keeping guys engaged, and really, I have no idea where Kansas would have been in that game if Diggy
Oh,
wasn't out there because he provided all the energy, and he is legitimately Bez. Like we talked about advantage creators and all that stuff. He is the only player on Kansas that can create an advantage and get his own shot, create
at
something.
5'8".
At 5'8", how is it that Diggy Coy is the only person who can do that on this Kansas team? It's concerning. This is the self quote from last night. We couldn't get a shot. It's obvious how people are going to guard Dewan and Zeke, and so we had a hard time getting a shot. But Diggy can create separation just a little bit better than anybody else can off the bounce, and so he was able to make four long shots. Like even Bill Self knows that Diggy is literally the only person on the team that can possibly create their own shot.
He's the only guy with a burst. Dewan has no burst. Zeke has negative burst. AJ's done. Ryland's not a creator. He never was. We never thought he would be. So it's literally just Diggy, and especially last night. I mean, Dewan was brutal last night. Again, dude, it's tough to watch him go through this stretch, but we're better when Diggy has the ball. Him coming off a screen going left, I think he's shooting 95% on that shot this year. Just that specific top of the key going left ball screen. And that's the best play Kansas has right now outside of a one-on-one Dickinson post touch. I mean, it's crazy to think back to the beginning of the year, and I don't know. It's different when you watch it, obviously, but I had such high hopes for this offensive ceiling for this team. Such high hopes. And it's a battle to score 60 points nowadays. It's ridiculous.
I have never seen a Kansas team struggle, just struggle to score. Like there is not a single person on this team who can just go by somebody. Dewan can't do it. Zeke can't do it.
He
Like
doesn't do
nobody.
that.
The
He's
last,
explosive, but he's not a beat you off the dribble guy.
yeah. I mean, just looking at the box scores, I mean, Kansas puts up 73 against Kansas State, 71 against Colorado, 67 against Utah, 57 against BYU, and then boom, 96 against Oklahoma State. That was pretty cool, but then you
They
got
shut the damn ball.
71 versus Colorado, 73, 59. Like if you take out the Oklahoma State game, this team hasn't scored over 75 points since UCF, January 28th.
Lord. And then you turn on an SEC game and both teams have 100. You're like, oh, this is probably really fun to cheer for. And I bet pretty exhilarating to watch. But no, nope, we're playing 2006 basketball still.
Yep. Kansas has now fallen to the number 60 offense on Ken Palm. Still the number 6 defense. That's kind of the only thing keeping Kansas afloat in the top 25 still. I honestly could not tell you how Kansas is 21 on Ken Palm
Dude,
right now, but
Ken's got to redo the algorithm, man. He's got Dickinson as the third best player in America. Like we got a whole Kenny's got to get back in his bag this summer because I don't know what's going on right now.
that actually does go into my next point. And that is that Hunter Dickinson and KJ Adams have actually been really,
Yeah,
really good lately. Like those two guys have been playing their best basketball, but the guard play in turn has completely disappeared. We've already mentioned it a little bit, but the guard play has disappeared, and now, of course, whenever that happens, KJ and Hunter Dickinson are playing well. I just want to give KJ some praise really quick. The last 3 games, he had 15 and 2 rebounds against Colorado, 21 and 13 against Texas Tech. That Texas Tech game, KJ Adams played the best game of his career. I can't tell you how many times Kansas needed a huge like tip out, extra possession. KJ tips it out, grabs the ball, does something. KJ was electric in that game, also had 3 assists. And then last night, or sorry, Monday against Houston, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, a block. Shot 9 of 10 from the line. 90% from the free throw line, KJ
that's
Adams.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. I want to give some praise to KJ because
Totally.
I feel like a lot of the conversation all season has been about how, KJ needs to play less and this guy should play instead of KJ. Guess what, guys? None of them are better than KJ Adams. None of them. Like maybe there was some sort of glimmer of hope that AJ Storr or Rylan Griffin or Flory might be better than KJ Adams at some point this season, but guess what? They're not. They're just not.
Totally deserved. He I thought he had a rough first half Monday, but his second half was phenomenal. It's like same thing you're saying against Tech. He was just so crucial, and it's a long way from that Baylor second half to where I was pulling my hair out just every decision he made.
I think
And
KJ might have been like, I think he might have been playing a little bit hurt. I think he might have gotten rushed back a little bit. Because
dude,
that wasn't KJ Adams. That stretch was not KJ. It
right.
just
It was bad. Like it's noticeably been much better. Same thing with Hunter, I feel like. Hunter has been very reliable lately. There was a stretch for him where he was like 3 of 9, 4 of 12 from the field. And now you're back to 55% plus efficiency from Dickinson every single night. Like those guys have been great. And I don't think them being great is why the guards have been just not good at all. But, it still doesn't work. Even with how KJ Adams getting 21 and 13, I would have been like, oh, we beat Tech by 16, 17. No, dude. Everyone else is a complete zero except for Hunter. Like, it's so crazy, dude, that you have Hunter Dickinson, who statistically, metrically is a top 10 All American guy in the country. And yet, when you watch the games, it does not feel like that ever. Unless he's having a nice 8, 9 minute run there, it doesn't feel like that because it's just everything is so clustered. And even when KJ's going good, it's because he has a running room. Like his first half was rough because he was just going straight up from the block. He's too short to do that, especially against Houston's super long and lanky guys that they have. He needs like a runway. He needs to start at the elbow and get downhill. And he was able to do that in the second half and be really effective. But dude, clearly playing through Hunter and KJ isn't working, man. It's not. And it's not that, oh, Kansas has been in these games against Houston and Tech. Yes, they have, but it has felt so hard to score points. That's the problem, is that you're in these games because of your defense. It feels like another sport watching Kansas try to get a bucket versus watching a bunch of other teams in the country who are so fluid and are running around and I've got opinions on this that we're about to get into, so I'll just let you take it back.
yeah. Before that, I just wanted to kind of discuss just Zeke Mayo and Dewan, just how they've been doing lately. Zeke against Colorado, 4 points, 3 turnovers. Against Texas Tech, 5 points, 5 turnovers. Against Houston, 7 points, 6 turnovers. Just some quick math. What is that? 16 points and 14 turnovers in the
Yeesh.
last 3 games. Out of your 2 guard, that's not going to play very well. And then
Um,
let's move on to Dewan. Last 3 games. 4 points, 5 assists, not bad. 6 points, 7 assists against Tech. Didn't really think he played that well against Tech though. And then last night, 2 points, 2 assists. Uh, if you're getting that production out of your 1 and 2 guards, like you could point to a zillion players in the country, it seems like, who have outdone those 2 guys in 1 game
yeah,
over their last 3.
yeah.
You
That's
can't
that's
win
a
ball games whenever you just can't. Whenever your 1 and 2 are not a factor to score the ball, and it is insane that DeJuan Harris has played the most games in Big 12 history and still can't get a bucket.
that is what finishes off my last thought is that there has been a constant for the past few years of this Kansas offense. If you the title of most minutes ever played at Kansas used to belong to Danny Manning. So when you talk about that kind of accolade, that's what I'm expecting out of you. A Danny Manning, a Frank Mason, a Mario, a Sharon Collins, Devontae, somebody like that, who was here for multiple years and was extremely impactful and brought a championship. DeJuan Harris has not checked any one of those boxes. And I
Championship,
love,
championship.
he didn't bring it though. He didn't bring it. In fact, he almost lost it by stepping out of bounds with 5 seconds left. I mean, he was young then, so that's the argument then. But I still feel like he would do that now. If it was the same thing, he's the same player. And I love DeJuan. I absolutely love DeJuan. When you have 3 NBA players around him, I love him. But dude, when I heard that, it made me like, all right, that that's the problem. That is the problem. And like Dewan brings a lot on the defensive end. At least he used to. I don't really see a whole lot of that anymore. 2 points, 2 assists, and you play the entire game, and you played the most minutes in Kansas basketball history. That's a lot of dudes. Over a century. A lot of players, Sam. A lot of years, a lot of minutes. DeJuan Harris has the most, and he's going to end his career averaging like 7 points and 5 assists a game. That's going to be his career averages. So that's all I have to say. You guys take that as you will. The most minutes in program history is going to finish with 7 and 5. And I know that all the stuff we love DeJuan for doesn't show up in that 7 and 5. I completely understand that. But at the same time, he's not your rah rah vocal leader, and he's not exactly a lead by example guy. So at some point, dude, you need a reset. It's nothing against Dewan or the rest of the team or how Bill's been coaching. You just need a reset. It's run its course. It's more than run its course. And at this point, it feels like Kansas is beating a dead horse.
I'll say this before we move on, Bez. Whenever Dewan slipped against Houston last night, like that was the end of the game, effectively, right? Dewan slips, it's the end of the game. He stood up and was smiling, like
Yeah,
after,
that's kind of how he is. That's just how he like. I feel
like
like he's always smiling after bad plays.
you know how many Kansas fans probably like because I know that I like after that happened was like, wow, that just hurts. I can't imagine how many Kansas fans were just absolutely screaming at their TV. Like you basically just effectively lose the game and your number one reaction is to get up and smile. That just kind of rubs me a little bit of the wrong way. But Bez, this is the general takeaway that I wanted to give. We've already pretty much said it, but this team isn't going anywhere in March. The could be wrong people. I watched their episode last night or Monday night, and they thought like they were basically saying that the vibes are high, right? Like they feel better after this game than they have.
Good for
I
them.
completely disagree.
for
I
them.
completely disagree. I have never, ever, ever felt worse about a Kansas team in my life than I have because of how these two games have played out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they see it as you played close against two top 10 teams. And by the way, the Houston game, let's just put this to bed. Milos Uzan gets in foul trouble and doesn't play literally half the game. He missed half the game. That's been their best player lately. And the other guy you can argue has been their best player is LJ Cryer, who didn't
Foul
play
trip.
the last half of the game because he also was in foul trouble. So basically, Kansas played about 80% of Houston the entire night last night. There were maybe 4 minutes where Uzan and Cryer were in the floor at the same time. So let's just relax about that real quick. Second of all, it's just, it doesn't matter. I do think the team's coming together a little bit more. I think they have a point there. The vibes within the locker room might be higher. That's great. That doesn't affect the product on the floor. It doesn't work with this roster, with this team. It doesn't, Hunter Dickinson being the number one option doesn't work. I'm sorry. It does not work in this era of college basketball. 12 years ago, Tyler Hansbrough type, maybe. Maybe it works then, but it doesn't work now. And you can't have your point guard be a zero from the perimeter. You can't have it. So when those two things matter, everybody on the team could be happily in love for all we care. It's not going to work.
Yeah. To your point there with kind of maybe this team coming together, this is what Self said after the game. He said after the Houston game, he said, "quote It was a different feel in the locker room after the game. I thought we had a pretty tight huddle. I thought the guys competed harder. Even the guys that didn't play, they all thought it felt different too. I thought it felt different. No moral victories, but this was going to be. You're going to have to play a fantastic game to win down here, and we almost pulled it off. Just didn't quite get it done." So I don't know. Maybe this team is coming together a little bit. Maybe this team will end up shocking us and make the Sweet 16 maybe go farther. I wanted to wrap up on this point, and then we're going to go to a break, talk about the Zeke Mayo tweet, and then Arizona Senior Night. I was watching After Dark on Monday night, and this is what Randolph Childress said about Kansas. He basically says that the expectations and the failure to meet expectations can overwhelm you a little bit. And I think that might be just the story of this season. I mean, I really do think that this Kansas team was put way too high of expectations on themselves, and they're kind of melting down to it. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's yeah, we can get into that after the break. I do think there's some truth in that, but at the same time, you get what you signed up for, man. You get what you signed up for.
Yep. All right, y'all. We're going to take a quick break. Whenever we get back, we're going to talk about Zeke Mayo's tweet, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit of senior night talk. Jayhawks facing Arizona. We'll get to that after the break.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that.
All right, y'all. We are back here on the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. We got to talk about this Zeke Mayo tweet that was fired off after the Texas Tech loss on Saturday. This is probably maybe the biggest story that came out of Kansas since we've last been on. So, pulling up the tweet now, basically, there's 4 screenshots of Instagram DMs, all saying really bad things to Zeke Mayo. There's some racist stuff in here, calling him, the N-word and stuff like that. And Zeke Mayo said with this tweet, I 100% deserve all the criticism in the world. My performance was beyond pitiful today and has been for a while now. I work my ass off every day to be great, but I can't be perfect all the time. I'm sorry to our fans and teammates. I will continue to get better. So Zeke Mayo releases that tweet probably about an hour and 30 minutes after the game. That prompts Bill Self to release a statement. This statement was released around 11 or midnight ish, I think on Saturday. And basically I guess I'll just read the whole thing. So this is what Bill Self said. The game today was a very good college basketball game. We played a very good team and we got beat. We had some individuals have exceptional individual games, and we had some maybe not play up to the standard they've set for themselves. But everyone on our team, coaches included, myself more than anyone, had opportunities to impact the game. A play here, a play there that could have been the difference in the game over the course of 40 minutes. Texas Tech made more plays than we did. We competed, we tried, we came up short, and I'm proud of their efforts, but I'm also proud of their preparation to be ready for the game. We haven't had the overall year that we'd hoped for ourselves, nor the year that many people have expected, but it hasn't been from a lack of caring. I can do a lot of things better. We could all do a lot of things better, but I'll roll with these guys every day and be proud of it. Any criticism about the team should be directed at me. I'm the head coach. I'm looking forward to see how we bounce back against a terrific Houston team on Monday. Then after that game, I'll look forward to see how we respond against a terrific Arizona team on Saturday. This is the most important time of the season. This is the time where we need to be better, but we also need to be focused on basketball and not things being said outside of basketball that have absolutely no merit. Uh, so after he released that statement, he then basically told Seth Davis over at Hoops HQ that he regrets putting out the statement. And then he said last night, somebody asked if it was kind of a distraction for the Houston game. He said, I don't think so. Obviously, when you comment on it, it makes for the story to linger. But I think we'll learn how to deal with some things better moving forward. But I didn't think our guys were distracted because of that. Bez, what are just kind of your thoughts on all of this?
First of all, the whole thing's disaster. Just a complete disaster. From the initial Zeke tweet to Bill Self regretting the statement, everything in between, complete disaster. And just shows how bad the season is and like how freaked out and panicking everybody is because I mean Kansas has not been this bad since you or I have been alive. We've literally not been on the earth for something like this. It has never happened. Here's my thing. It's and first of all, everything that was said to Zeke is obviously terrible. Don't have to say that. And I do think it's worse nowadays because of the gambling stuff. First of all, the I guess fifth of all, I've said that 10 times. Those aren't Kansas fans. They're, loser betters, right? And when you lose a bet, Sam and I dabble occasionally in the world, or used to. But that sucks. Losing a bet sucks. It feels like you lost the game. 100%. You had money on the line and your money's gone. And it's because one or two things didn't happen. Boo-hoo, that's too bad. Everybody feels that. And this is what's happening. And this is Zeke Mayo is not the first athlete to have this happen. You see NFL players, NBA players, MLB players. Kevin Durant tweets, I don't care about your parlay. Like, this is very much a thing in just the world of sports right now. But so is taking criticism as a Kansas Jayhawk basketball player. The name David McCormick might ring a bell for some people out there. Dave had it so bad, man. So bad. And I'm not trying to compare the two because that's not fair to either. But Dave got terrible, terrible things said to him, sent to him, all of it in between. Just like Zeke is going through right now. And I don't know why Zeke is looking for it. You know what I mean? Like it seems like he's actively seeking it out. And I think that's just like the whole culture around what college sports are about is like broken at that point, man. You cannot be in the locker room on your phone. I don't know why that's even allowed. It's never been allowed, until recently when half of your brand and identity is based on your social media and your NIL. This is the stuff that's going to happen. Everyone's too online, everyone's too connected. We know too much about these guys, like that's part of what made sports back in the day so great. We didn't really know a whole lot about athletes until like Shaq, like athletes were a mystery. Like people were dying to know what Larry Bird did on his off days. Now it would be an entire documentary. We wouldn't have to wonder. Everything's a documentary. And and the last point I have is you come to Kansas, man, and this isn't a shot at Zeke. This is just a general saying. You can't get caught up in this stuff. You can't because you're playing for something greater than yourself. You are. You have to look up at the banners. Look up. Look at all of those names, all of those titles. Think about when you were a kid growing up. These guys on our team, they're our age. They were watching Mario, Brandon Rush. They were watching Wiggins as a kid, man. Now you're in that spotlight. You have to know what that comes with. And like, we're getting ready to have our high school players come in this summer for attack and play for a national championship in 5 months. And I'm super excited about that. And the second they walk into the facility, what do they see on the wall? Caitlin freaking Clark, dude. She was here. She built this. She won championships. Look at the scrutiny she goes through. That is what you're going to deal with. This is your expectation. And to quote Michael Jordan from The Last Dance, if you don't want to play that way, don't play that way. If you're built for it, you're built for it. If you're not, you're not. And so just athletes as a whole, man, gee, you can't get caught up in it because it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop, especially now with all this gambling.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said what I was going to say. I mean, it is bad nowadays. Like I can't imagine how widespread this is, just across all of college sports. Like the type of messages that Zeke is getting, I bet people get them every single day, like
Right.
all across the country in all sports. But like, man, I'm kind of with you. Like Zeke posted this at 4:34 p.m., about an hour and a half after the game ended. Why is one of the first things that you're doing after a tough loss going through your Instagram DMs to people who like can't even DM you? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
in
As blocker report.
the hidden Instagram DMs, why is it one of the first things that you were doing, especially if you had a bad game? Like you're literally setting yourself up to be disappointed and to feel really bad about yourself. And you mentioned David McCormick. Like, do you ever think that he was going through his Instagram DMs after
That would
games
shock
and
me.
trying, like, do you think he was searching his name on Twitter to see if anybody was saying stuff bad about him? Like, no. Like KU, I don't know if you remember this, but KU ended up doing like a video that was like the reading mean tweets or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I know
Like,
exactly what
and
you're talking about.
and there's like there's a text that like the social media person sent out, and Dave was like, "Oh no, like, mine are gonna be pretty hilarious." Like it's not like David doesn't know that the outside noise is happening, right? Like he knows, but he's not paying attention to it. He's not reading it. He's not caring about it. And I just think that Zeke Mayo is, and it's just like you said, it's stuff you got to block out. It's horrible stuff. Like it's bad.
Sucks for Zeke,
It
100%.
sucks, but you have to block it out. You just have to. Like whenever if I ever become like, let's say I become a famous journalist, like, Jeff Goodman,
Right.
how many nasty things he probably gets in his DMs like all the time.
That's why he had sympathy
People
for Zeke.
people telling him to wear orange and all this and that he sucks and all this. Do you think Jeff like reads through every single DM and is like, man, like this sucks? Like no, he blocks it out. It's just what you got to do. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just the take to have. It sucks, but you got to block it out. You just got to.
You got to block it out, man. And like, this isn't like, I'm not saying Zeke is soft or anything, like softer than Dave or anything like that. It's just the today's athlete as a whole. Even though Dave was only here a couple years ago, that couple years, a decade ago, as we're all growing up, really, really matters because it's a different getting Instagram when you're in seventh grade versus getting it when you're in third grade. That's completely different. Those 4 years, if I let's say I get Instagram in seventh grade and so gets it in third grade, those 4 years we are not going to experience the same thing. We are opened up to a completely different world, and you change because of that. And that's what's happening to athletes today. And it sucks that so many of them probably feel as Zeke does, as I got to go see what they're saying about me. And, to us, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, block it out. It's easy to say. But when everything, like when your entire identity as an athlete, it's built on like how many clicks your highlights get. Did my high school highlight reel get a lot of buzz? What coaches are now seeing it? Okay, I want to get a big NIL deal. I have to have a lot of followers, so a lot of brands are going to want me. Okay, now I'm going to the league, right? Or I'm going overseas or anything. And I need to build brand recognition for myself. I got to start a podcast or launch a clothing line or have a cologne or something. Like everything is so built around that. that it's just it sucks that like they're just not wired the way that like I said, like, think about like, dude, is Nick Collison reading through his DMs? Like that's not even you
Yeah.
can't even compare it. Like guys just aren't wired the same and the
They
culture
talked
around
about it on the
sports is
Goodman and Hummel podcast, right? And like, that was basically what Robbie Hummel was saying. It's like, like, I mean, obviously, he said it's not the same. Like, people were calling him like just bad at basketball and soft and like injury prone, like, he can't stay healthy. But like, he wasn't getting, millions of messages in his DM. So it's easier to block it out back then, but you still got to do it. You still got to block it out. All right, let's move on to Arizona. Bez, senior night. The seniors that Kansas will be honoring: DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, Hunter Dickinson, Zeke Mayo, Shaquille Moore, and then Patrick Cassidy, baby. I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Patrick Cassidy is going to be uh, giving a senior night speech as well. I'll just ask you first, Bez, what are just kind of your expectations with the game? Does Kansas win? It's currently 41 straight wins on senior night. And it's not like, the streak has a bunch of cupcakes on it. Like Texas Tech has been two of them,
oh
just
no,
like
they've
the
been
last
games,
5
man.
years. Like
Yeah,
there have
yeah.
been some games on senior night, and this team has ruined a lot of streaks this year. Can't ruin this one,
Like
right?
all of
There's no
them.
way. There's
I
no way.
feel like this is a massive game for just the program. You gotta have keep something going. The Big Monday streak is the only one still lasting, and that's like kind of a gimmicky streak, I feel like. Senior night's pretty like, okay, senior night, Kansas doesn't lose. That's a thing. You write it down. But, this is another pretty good game, dude. Arizona's a squad, and it's gonna be tough, dude. I got a question for you though. Who's not gonna start out of the seniors?
Patrick Cassidy.
Oh, Shaq's not even gonna play.
I think he might suit up.
Oh,
I'm not sure exactly what his status is, but I feel like Kansas would put him out there for a little bit to put
if
him out.
he's healthy enough to play, he'll play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a massive game. It really is. Like jokes aside, like this is a big game. Not for this season. We have put the season to bed. You have got to maintain some type of this is Kansas. And like also, you can't lose 4 games at home. You're gonna kill the magic. You're killing it, guys. You're killing the magic. You can't lose 4 home games. You can't do it.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, Bez. I don't know how much this means, but right now, like Kansas basketball tweeted out earlier today that they're putting out a ticket special for senior day, 2 tickets for 150. I don't think that's really a
What are we,
great.
the football team, dude? What are we
Yeah,
doing?
it's not a great. I don't
God.
think that's a great sign. I don't even really want to talk about it, but just throwing it out there that is not a great sign that Kansas is having to advertise tickets
Water
for.
bottles for showing up? I mean, gosh.
I want to ask you, Bez, about the speeches. How do you think, like, how emotional do you think this is going to be? Because I really feel like with DeJuan and KJ especially, like, might be pretty tough.
Like everything that has been said over this year, last year, whatever. Huge pieces of the program. I mean, you can have all the Dewan opinions they want. He is the leading leader in freaking minutes and games and every other longevity stat you can think of for KU. And the Big 12 now, because I mean, why not? And
He
KJ
was the
Adams,
starting point guard on a national championship team. Just saying.
plus that, plus KJ Adams, same deal. Bill Self trusts 5 guys at the end of the game in a national championship in a 3-point game with 5 seconds left, and 18-year-old KJ Adams is one of them. These 2 guys gave everything they possibly had to this program. And sadly, the fans, us, the program, we expected them to give more than what they had, but they truly gave everything they had. Same thing with Hunter, man. Like it's our fault. We expected too much out of him. Dewan Harris is not Frank Mason. And if we would have accepted that 3 years ago, it would have been like, oh, Dewan, nice piece. But you know how it is. Like I don't have to go into it. Those
I
three are
just hope
gonna.
the fans send these guys out
I
the right
think
way.
that's
And
what I think they're gonna cheer. I think they'll get a big applause. I think all 6 of them. Pat definitely will. Shaq will. Zeke will. I think
I
now.
don't know why, Bez. I just have a really bad feeling that there might just be some sort of, like, this team is struggling bad. And like, I think we text about this. Like, Kansas fans, dude, like, they're pretty spoiled. Like, they don't really accept losing, especially ones
No idea how to
in
lose.
school now that are younger, like 4 or 5 years younger than us, that have literally only seen dominance from Kansas and dominance from their favorite football team, the Kansas City Chiefs. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know. The program isn't in a great state right now, and I would be very, very upset if something sort of off happens on senior night. I'm not saying that it's going to
I
happen.
feel
I
terrible.
just really hope it doesn't.
Me too. That would really that's not Kansas basketball, guys. Like I think that's another thing too. The more you win a championship, enrollment goes up, out of state enrollment goes up, and you get a bunch of Minnesota and Chicago idiots who've never watched a KU game before they got there. Those kids are the problem, all right? Those kids are the problem. You get guys like Sam Lance coming in from Missouri and has no idea what's going on. He just likes
Hey,
Devontae
hey,
Graham.
I came to Kansas because I wanted to be part of a school with a basketball tradition. And you know what, Bez? I got to go to New Orleans for probably the most historic Final Four of all time. So I'm happy. I'm
Yeah,
completely happy. I
you
could have
brought
gone
us a
to
championship.
Indiana. Indiana was my other school that I was thinking about. And Indiana State, shout out the Sycamores because the Sycamores saved me from going to Indiana. Because whenever I went and visited, it was the first game of the year. Indiana State walked in to Assembly Hall and beat Indiana by like 20 points, and I decided that I couldn't go there. So
That
shout
could
out the
never happen to
Sycamores.
Kansas
Shout
until
out
it
to
shout out Indiana State. And shout out Larry Bird. Once again, two mentions on the show today.
who Larry mentions. What are we cooking, Bez?
On one, man.
Score
If you
prediction. Let's leave with that.
prediction,
Let's leave with that. Let's see what Kim Palm has it at real quick. I mean, I already know the answer. Kim Palm has us winning this game for whatever reason.
dude,
Yep.
Ken loves. Ken's the jail.
75-72. 75-72.
That sounds about right. I'm gonna go. I do think Kansas wins. All right. And
I don't think Kansas scores 75. That's for damn sure.
I really hope Caleb Love doesn't score 75 because this is definitely a game he's had circled being on that UNC team. And that's just kind of that's the player he is. He lives for these type of games and he plays like crap in every other game. He will shoot the ball. It's going up. All right. It is going up, and we'll see if it goes in. I think Kansas wins 71-64-65.
Uh, I'm gonna go 69, like 65, something like that. 69-65. Yeah.
It's
That's
crazy to think I don't want to make it a close game because I don't think Kansas can win close games, and that just sounds weird coming out of my mouth.
I will say Caleb Love, last few games, I think they play either today or tomorrow, but 27 against BYU, 23 against Utah, and then he had 10 against Iowa State. I'm praying he scores like, another 20 plus something so he can have, more of a down game against Kansas because
Yeah, no, we don't need him to be due. We do
no,
not need him to be due.
no. So please, Caleb Love.
Yeah,
Two
go
of
crazy tonight.
15, 2 of 15 field goals against
That's
Iowa.
what I'm saying. It's going up, bro. It does not matter. It is going up.
All right, y'all. That is all we have for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. We will be back after the Arizona game, probably on Monday, I would say, probably Monday. And then we got the Big 12 tournament coming up. I'll try to get somebody on here to preview the Big 12 tournament with us.